Now, speaking of other things to worry about, I think we should talk about Paul Henry.
I'm very worried about Paul Henry.
I know Paul Henry at the moment.
Many years.
Paul Henry's been going through a lot.
It's tough being Paul.
Oh man, and like,
where is Paul?
Oh, he's jet setting all over the world.
It's a pandemic.
And I'm just a bit worried about him because it's obvious he's phoned Air New Zealand on the telephone and he didn't get through quick enough. And what that means is that the CEO of Air New Zealand needs to be fired because Paul Henry could not get through on the phone quick enough. Let's just have a bit of a listen. He wrote a piece on the NZ Herald. This is my interpretation. Understand that. He wrote a piece on the New Zealand Herald. It's behind the paywall, and I haven't paid for that yet, so we're not going to have a look at it. But he was on the AM show this morning talking about his piece. So let's have when I say piece, I mean his article, not his piece. His article. Here we go.
But they're operating business as usual. Here's the thing with Air New Zealand. I haven't got it in for them. I've been a huge supporter of Air New Zealand over the years, but they're not a normal airline. They're a national carrier. They're our national carrier. They have extra obligations to us than they do to anyone else. And they are behaving in an entirely entitled manner.
Okay, this is the point that I just need to do one quick thing. Just if people aren't aware what projection is, let me just put out there, this is the definition of projection as per Britannica. Projection is the mental process by which people attribute to others what is in their own minds. I would encourage you to think about that every time you hear Paul Henry say the word we. We need better service. This is not good enough for us. And then I think, unfortunately, Mr. Henry, who argue with you, well, you love him or hate him, he's a brilliant broadcaster, give him that much. But then I think the veil slips and he starts talking about how he should be treated. But just think about the projection. When someone's talking about others and what others need and want, they're often talking about themselves. And let's just have a listen to a bit more of what Mr. Henry's got to say about Air New Zealand.
This is what, in the piece that I wrote, I was talking about the difference between business and good business. Good business, when things go badly, is looking after core assets. It's looking after the core business. And that's travellers like me. And I have not been looked after. I have been financially raped by the airline, but I've allowed it to happen because, like everyone else in the country, we understand the pressure they've been under. God only knows they've told us enough in all of their emails to
God only knows they've told us enough. Me and us. Just remember the projection thing.
us. But now we expect some payback for that.
They might say, Paul, that they've had, a lack of.
Now we expect some payback for that. Just, that whole, talking about for other people.
Clear and early guidelines from the government.
Oh, and they have had that. But they're running a business. We all, as well as I do, Melissa, that this is entirely what our government was going to do. They were going to stick their head in the sand and wait until the second coming before they respond to COVID like the rest of the world does. And what I'm talking about is responding to the end of COVID. But it is for Air New Zealand as a large international business, it is for them to be able to handle these things. And that is where a good chair and a good CEO would have been able to anticipate what was happening and not left us in the lurch. You try and book a flight now to Australia, or more importantly, you try and get a flight to the United States in June or July. For an economy flight, you could be paying $5,000 return.
Yeah,
after waiting all this time, how could they not have enough seats for us? How could they not have enough people to answer the phone?
Well,
how just think of the children. How could they not? Okay,
My God.
So if you know anything about me, right, one of the things you'll know is that I like to check out what people say and what they claim. So this morning before the show, I went and had a look for some flights from Air New Zealand to Los Angeles in June and July. And guess what I found? Guess what I found? Just guess. First of all, I thought, let's go on my birthday, 14th of June. That'll be a fun time to go. And we get return flights for $2,700. Mr. Henry will have us believe it's $5,000. And then I thought, well, maybe that's a one-off. Maybe I've struck lucky and I've just hit one. So I went a month later into July and look, return flights, LAX, $2,900. So the hysteria that Paul Henry is showing around this leads me to believe, my honest hell belief, is that he has not received the service that he or what have you just found? How much?
Wait, which way am I going? That way.
Yeah, there you go. 1,500, that's one way, and then 1,000 returns. So you're 2,500. What month is that? June or July? Because apparently June or July is $5,000 return.
Yep. So depart Wednesday, the 1st of June. Come back Saturday, the 18th.
Yep. Someone's asking, was he asking about?
So he's not looking at economy.
No. Someone's just said that, and look, I'll find it again and play it.
To the United States in June or July.
Wait,
for anticipate what was happening and not left us in the lurch. You try and book a flight now to Australia, or more importantly, you try and get a flight to the United States in June or July. For an economy flight, you could be paying $5,000 return.
So no, I'm not having that from any of you guys. He said you try and book an economy flight, $5,000 return. So
like
I just found three. Yeah. So it's the entitlement, and he talked about how New Zealand feels entitled. Remember that thing about projection? It's the entitlement that Mr. Henry has I'm not doing this as a thing to stand up for Air New Zealand, but I saw this morning, and I just thought, as I always do, I wonder if he's right. I wonder if Air New Zealand has really dropped the ball. So who should we go to find that out? How about someone like Jeffrey Thomas? Jeffrey Thomas is the founder of airlineratings.com. And as he's written exclusively about Air New Zealand, he knows them inside and out. And guess who he spoke to this morning? One of our favorites, Tova O'Brien. What did Jeffrey Thomas say of Air New Zealand in response to Mr. Henry's being have to wait on the phone, and then because he had to wait on the phone, thinks the CEO should resign? What did he have to say?
Look, Air New Zealand is rating very, very well. It's one of the best airlines in the world. It's been voted #1 in the world year after year.
Oh my goodness.
Like all airlines, it's gone through a very tough period the last couple of years. Had to lay staff off, bring them back, put them off, bring them back. And it's been a very tumultuous time for the airline. But look, it's in really good shape. And I think the future is extremely bright for the airline going forward.
I'm going to play a little bit more of that, but I just want to go to show and say this again. The self-entitled, wealthy broadcaster who is going, I am not getting the service that I deserve. Yet, Chewy, you can testify to this. We can testify to this from being impacted. Every business in the world is being impacted by COVID at the moment. Every business in the world. That's why you'll hear when you phone up a business, they'll say, because of COVID conditions, our staff is down. We're going to take a bit longer to get to you. You see that on signs when you're walking into stores. This self-entitled bully, he's got a bully pulpit, and he's trying to use it to go, what about me? I haven't been given the acknowledgement I deserve by this company. And then he's selling it as we all deserve better.
This is a guy that's got a lot more resources than anybody else. And I'm not just necessarily talking cash and that sort of thing. I'm sure he's got it's not him sitting on hold for an hour. Let's be honest.
True. Oh, well, maybe not. But yeah, okay.
He also has, his contacts and that sort of thing. I'm sure he has the ability to reach out and personally talk to someone in the upper ends of Air New Zealand and go, hey, look, I want to go somewhere. Me and my partner have had personal experience reasonably recently of trying to get through to Air New Zealand, and it sucks. It took an hour, but it's the same with every call center. The company that I work for, I know that our call center has really long wait times at the moment. It's the same for our competitors and that sort of thing. And it's for the same reason. Call centers here in New Zealand often use people that are here on a temporary visa or something like that. They're here for a holiday. They're working while they move around. A call center job's really good for that. We haven't got those. And then for the guys that are working in call centers, COVID has ripped through them. And then they've had to transition to working from home and that sort of thing. And, I can't imagine what it would be like working for Air New Zealand and say you're doing the call center from home, as it sounded like the person that we spoke to was. And you've got Paul Henry yelling at you because he wants to go to LA in your own home. I mean, these are unprecedented times, as everybody keeps on saying, and some people are fine and they sort of go, well, yep, look, things are going to take a little bit longer. The world's a bit fucked up. And then there's Paul Henry that goes, I want everything to be the same, and I want to be the special boy who gets the tip-top service.
I think that's
aren't we all outraged?
Yeah.
Because I'm inconvenienced. I'm calling you from London, of course.
It's like the kingly thing, my servants, you should be outraged because how I have been treated. It's kind of a bit like that. And I want to play a little bit more of this conversation before we wrap up, because I get that we're all over COVID, right? And I get that many of us are finding it hard to be gracious with people and companies and businesses that are taking longer. And if I was being generous to Mr. Henry, I might say he obviously came to the end of his tether with this. But to then stop, to take enough time to write an op-ed, to send it off to the New Zealand Herald, to have them published, it's a bit different from me and you having a bitch on this because it's just happened to us and then it's done. And now to be interviewed about it by the AM show, and I'm sure other outlets as well, about how because he got bad service, that the CEO should. It's a different level of narcissism. Well, I can't say narcissism because that's a diagnosis, but you know what I mean. It has narcissistic tendencies to it. This, I am the center of the world. What happens to me happens to everyone. This is terrible for me. That means it's terrible for everyone. It's revoltingly entitled. Let's just play the last little bit of this conversation.
So our eminent colleague, Paul Henry, his opinion piece talking about the delays getting through on the call centre line, not having enough planes, not having enough people. What do you make of that?
Yes, look, I can hear Paul's frustration because we've got the same problem over on the other side of the ditch over here in Australia with Qantas having similar problems. The issue is not just that simple. Airlines are slowly getting their operations back. I mean, all of a sudden governments say, look, we're going to open up tomorrow, the next day, or whatever it happens to be. You can't simply switch on a switch to say, we're flying, all aeroplanes are back, all staff are back. It just doesn't work like that. Bringing aeroplanes back from storage takes weeks, if not months. Bringing staff back, refresher courses. Pilots, for instance, have got to go through at least a week's retraining.
Wow.
Staff have got to go through retraining. And then on top of that, you've got COVID still ravaging through our community with airlines like, for instance, Qantas, I know specifically, between 30 and 40% staff away through COVID.
Basically, the conversation now goes on to talking all about how COVID's currently impacting, not even that. We've got a comment here from Empress talking about, the first flight is $6,800 one way. And look, I guess what I'm not saying is that there isn't a premium on some flights. I'm not also saying that if this flight leaving on this day that's only got one seat left, that seat's not incredibly expensive, but that's how all flights work all the time. And if you want to get the first flight to Los Angeles out of New Zealand for the first departure, yeah, you're going to pay a premium. But that's not what Paul Henry said. He said in June and July, you'll be lucky to find a flight, less than $5,000 return for an economy fare. And I looked twice and found two easily. Chewy looked once and found one easily. So it's the catastrophization, if that's the correct way to use that word, of an issue that's facing everyone, but this self-entitled, absolute immature, I don't know what words to use. I want to use a more derogatory term, but I'm not going to because I don't want to very deep. It's about I don't want to comment on him personally. It's more about what he's demonstrating and what he's doing. The self-entitlement is palpable and it's repugnant because he can't get it exactly the way he wants it, exactly when he wants it.